I'm Debbie Berzer with Debbie's Illuminations with Watch Kansas. And I'm here today interviewing Tim Johnson, who is the 38th District House of Representatives elected official. He is part of Leavenworth and Johnson County. Thank you so much for coming, and also thank you for your service. It's been only a few months.
It seems like forever, but it is very nice to be here. Who would have told you a year ago that I'm going to be a representative? I would have said, yeah, right. But it has been an honor and a privilege to get started this year to represent our area in Basehor and DeSoto and Bonner Springs.
Thank you so much. You're on the Education Committee. And so tell the voters a little bit about how was the bill put together for the K through 12 educational component, and where do you see it going?
Well, I asked for education. I finished up in December as a teacher, and so I really want to represent our education. So being on the K through 12 Education Budget Committee means we're the ones that put it together, which is nearly 63% of our entire state budget. So that's
63?
63% of our Kansas budget will go to education. And that's huge.
That is huge.
And it's critical, but there's a lot of issues, and I come at it from a conservative standpoint. Are we doing the right? Yeah. Are we getting the best bang for the buck? Those types of things. And so as we look at it, we have to come up and solve a lot of issues. Mm-hmm. And there are so many hands out from different parts of education, different areas from preschool on up into graduation programs, career technical ed. It is a very difficult process, and it takes weeks and weeks. This year's budget, as we have gone through it and what we presented and came out, some people called it a Frankenstein bill because they put different components into the bill at the end. But if we look at it from the standpoint of this part, and this part, I think it's a very good bill. And right now it's in limbo, and it won't be decided until we come back for the final veto session and they get back and make some final decisions.
And the veto session is in May, is that correct?
It will run in May, beginning May 3rd, 4th, 5th, possibly the 6th. Okay. And then there's a Sinai Day shortly after that. But the financial component, I believe, truly met what we call the Gannon statute. That was the court decision when the Supreme Court took it under advisement and directed that the state had to fund it at a certain level. We clearly did that this year. The second part of the funding is with what they call ESSER money. This is the emergency money from the federal to deal with COVID issues. Clearly schools had to change, go to remote. We had cleaning, sanitation issues. With COVID money, or this ESSER funding, there will be more money in this budget than ever given to Kansas K through 12 education in their history. That's not at issue because we actually put more money than the governor asked. But what now is with this bill are some issues dealing with tax credit for students who are at risk and in a failing school, and then what the Democrats term vouchers. But they're not vouchers. I want to make it very clear. They're an educational credit account that follows the student for those kids at risk. But that's a third component. I feel very strongly we have funded it, and I believe that will come through. The second part, I really believe personally, is the tuition credits. There is a program already in existence, and we just expanded it slightly, but it allows at-risk students who are in a public school in one of the 100 lowest performing schools, if they're at risk, to accept scholarships from private funds. These could be church groups. It is not state money. and it would follow the child to that private school. And I know clearly the Catholic Diocese and the Lutheran Synod have all backed this, because there are kids that can't get a good education. And I will just speak to KCK, because in the area where my two girls went to school, Wellborn Elementary was terrible as far as their performance level and achievement. I put my daughters in Christ the King School, and they had a wonderful education, K through 8. And when we heard testimony about this, there was a Hispanic individual. He spoke in Spanish. I was able to speak a little bit back with him. All he wanted was to bring his two sons over and get the same thing my girls had. How could I deny him that? It's not even state money. But that one's getting tied up in this bill, because there are objections that it will take away everything from everybody, and it won't. The educational vouchers are probably the big sticking point. And one side is saying it will rip the money out of the heart of education. I disagree with that. I think the way it's funded is a fair way. If your kid is in a failing school, they're not producing the results that are necessary for success in life, then we need to do something. And we're talking about the poor performing. And those are the issues that are going to be very controversial in the next few weeks, and probably are going to get debated. But you got to read very closely to hear what's true and what's been, I call, demonizing.
Okay.
And I hope that we can get back together and work through those on the education and give these kids what they deserve.
Well, you were talking about the lower performing. Do we have a lot of lower performing? Are you talking about the entire school district lower performing? Are you talking about like a specific, like grade school K through 3 or junior high, or what? How do you define?
There is testing that is done, and when it is completed, they are at risk if they cannot perform at a certain level in the math, the language arts, the science, etc. My districts are not in there at all. My Baser district, my DeSoto, my Tongi kids, we're great. But I lived in Wyandotte County, and I don't want to let those kids go because their parents don't have the money to take them to a nice school in Johnson County or move out to my area, or they simply can't afford a private school education. And I think we owe it to these kids in those 100 lowest performing school districts or schools to present them an opportunity.
You mentioned that the COVID money coming from the federal, that has come in from the federal, and that's a one-time, I'm assuming, that won't be coming back again, but I'm guessing. But that's not part of the money that you're counting on for this, for what you're talking about, or is it?
No, they were funded
Okay.
by state money in the budget, the planned budget, but there is also this ESSER money that is in addition, and it's based on a school district's need, based on their free and reduced lunches.
Oh, okay.
So a KCK district is going to get millions of ESSER dollars, whereas Baser or DeSoto schools are going to get a couple $100,000. It's going to where it needs to go for those special problems. But we need to talk about it. We need to be open and honest, and hopefully some of the divisiveness that's occurred between the teachers union towards the legislators will just get honest. But I think that kind of wraps that up.
Okay. Well, I thank you so much
You bet.
for sharing your information and working on the Education K through 12 committee. That is wonderful. I'm Debbie Berzer with Debbie's Illuminations and Watch Kansas, and I want to thank Tim Johnson, District 38, House of Representatives of Kansas. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.